It's Hanukkah today on the Line of Fire, and anti-Semitism is rising again in the world.
It's time for The Line of Fire with your host, activist, author, international speaker, and theologian, Dr. Michael Brown, your voice of moral, cultural, and spiritual revolution. Michael Brown is the director of the Coalition of Conscience and president of Fire School of Ministry. Get into The Line of Fire now by calling 866-34-TRUTH. That's 866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Okay, are you ready for this? Are you ready for this? We wished everyone happy Hanukkah a couple of days ago as the Hanukkah celebration began on Tuesday night. Posted on our Ask Dr. Brown Facebook page. Happy Hanukkah. Darkness is fading and the true light is already shining. So wishing happy Hanukkah, but also a quote from 1 John 2 pointing to Yeshua. And the very first comment that we got on our Facebook page, Ask Dr. Brown again, which is a good reach of people, well over 500,000, and millions reached through it. But the very first comment we received was this: "We will kill all the Israelis one by one. Our dream will finish soon. Promise. Palestine free." Yeah, so that's what's out there, friends. That continues to be the sentiment of many Jew haters around the world, not just Israel haters, but Jew haters. The good news is God's kingdom and purposes will triumph in the world. This is Michael Brown. It is Thoroughly Jewish Thursday. If you have a Jewish-related question of any kind, question about Judaism or Jewish tradition, a question about Israel today, a question about the Hebrew Bible or the Hebrew language or messianic prophecy or Jewish background to the New Testament or anything like that that is Jewish related, take those questions specifically on Thursday. So give me a call, 866-34-TRUTH, 866-348-7884. A lot to cover, a lot of interesting things to discuss with you today. But let me start here. I've been doing a lot of reading about ultra-Orthodox Judaism, specifically Hasidic Judaism, in recent days, a topic I've read on much over the years. And I was reminded by how many of the very, very religious Jewish leaders, Hasidic leaders, other ultra-Orthodox Jewish leaders, the late 1800s and then specifically in the early 1900s, strongly opposed the Zionist movement as it really began in the early 1900s. They strongly opposed it. They saw it as godless. They saw the leaders behind it as godless, and there were very, very few religious Jews involved with the Zionist movement, the modern Zionist movement at the turn of the last century. And they also saw it as preempting the work of the Messiah. They said when the Messiah comes, he'll regather the exiles, and to try to do that prematurely is to get in the way of God's plan. That will even increase worldwide anti-Semitism. These were some of their concerns. But one of the biggest concerns was you don't want an Israel that is not a Torah-observant Israel. You don't want an Israel that is not a religious Israel. And this is largely a secular movement. Now, a lot of their concerns have proven true. And, point of fact, although Orthodox Judaism is growing rapidly within Israel, especially because of high birth rates among the very religious, the fact is it is still largely a more secular than religious nation. But over the decades, the views of many traditional Jews changed. Why? Well, the Holocaust. And they realized that this could be God's plan to bring Jewish people back to the land and to have a place of refuge for the Jewish people, and that this was part of the paving the way for the Messiah to come. There are many Christians who see it the same way. They recognize that Israel today is not a perfect state by any means. They recognize the Jewish people there need Jesus, yet they recognize that God is at work in the midst of it, part of his larger plan of end-time restoration and ultimately preparing the way for the Messiah to come. We return, I want to take issue with some extreme remarks from a Muslim leader in America today. Stay tuned. It's been a beautiful spring day in the suburbs of Pennsylvania on this Thursday, June 7th, 1961. You just got home from work and your wife's almost finished preparing one of her typically delicious dinners. Tonight is TV night and everybody's ready to enjoy Ozzie and Harriet and Leave It to Beaver. Of course, a live in-person show is incredible. Who could forget your family outing 2 weeks ago when you all drove into Manhattan and saw My Fair Lady on Broadway? But TV has its own unique appeal, especially with shows like Lassie and Andy Griffith and Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color and Father Knows Best and the Flintstones. And they're all on at night so the whole family can enjoy them together. Well, on this lovely spring night, you're a bit more tired than you realize, fighting to stay awake through the current Beaver episode, even though it's a bit more suspenseful than normal. But this night, you doze off just before the end of the program, and when you wake up a few minutes later, everything's changed. Well, the TV's still there, except it's giant now, flat, hanging on a wall, exploding with colors, and instead of the smiling Cleaver family, it's... No, this can't be real. A nude couple going on their first date? What's happening? In a panic, you look for another channel, quickly figuring out how to use the newfangled remote control you're now holding in your hands, but your eyes can't believe what you're seeing. Did I wake up in hell? But something else is different when you look around the room. You're the only one there. Your 15-year-old son is out with his best friend Robbie, who used to be called Robin, back when he was a girl, along with Robbie's 17-year-old brother. They went to see a new movie in the Hostel series where people are tortured to death and mutilated for fun, but hey, at least he's out of the house. It's better than playing Grand Theft Auto for 6 straight hours where your boy's raping women and killing cops on his video screen. Suddenly, you wake up with a start. This was all a dream. With relief, you look around at your wonderful family smiling at their dad who fell asleep in the middle of TV night, and you think to yourself, thank God, this was only a bad dream. There's no way America or my family could ever look like that.
Dr. Michael Brown. Get into the line of fire now by calling 866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Welcome back to the broadcast. That music you hear reminds you that it is Thoroughly Jewish Thursday. Michael Brown here. Happy Hanukkah to all of our listeners and viewers. Remember, there's no ch sound in Hebrew. If you ever see ch, it is ch, not ch. 866-34-TRUTH with your Jewish-related questions. A couple things before I get into remarks that I want to take strong exception to. I'm looking at our YouTube live chat. A question from Redeemed. When are you ever going to update your show music? Change the World song is getting so old. How about some Messianic Jewish worship like Paul Wilbur or something? We use Paul Wilbur's music sometimes on Thursdays, Thoroughly Jewish Thursday. It is Jewish themed, hence using it on Thoroughly Jewish Thursday. But Change the World, no, that's not getting old. That's our overall theme. Jesus Revolution, your voice of moral, cultural, spiritual revolution. That's not getting old. Number one, theme songs, you stay with them for years and years and years because they're just that. Theme songs shake the nations, take the gospel to the nations. Hey, that's who we are. That's what burdens us day and night. Someone said something to me about my book, Whatever Happened to the Power of God, that came out in 1991. They said, I wish you could have just stayed with that message until we changed. In other words, the book's important, but we haven't changed yet. Well, of course, we stay with the message. The book stays in print, and we keep getting it out. But all the more, we're going to keep singing that song until we see change come to the world. All right, let me change topics now. I know that there are many peace-loving Muslims in the world today. Whether you consider them to be true, authentic Muslims or compromised Muslims is a totally separate issue. I know that there are many peace-loving Muslims in the world today. I know there are many who abhor the violence associated with radical Islam, and in the name of Allah today, they abhor it, they hate it, they're embarrassed by it. I know many who are devoted to their families. I know many who, in their own way, are God-fearing, God-loving. No, I believe they're in error and they need the Lord Jesus, of course, but in their own consciousness, they're trying to please God and serve God. I know there are many people who are fine citizens of their nations, who are Muslims. I understand that. So I am not blasting all Muslims here. I want to speak specifically to some comments made by the executive director and founder of CARE, which is the Council of American Islamic Relations. Listen to these comments that he recently made.
He appeased extremist religious group in the United States, the evangelicals, who somehow erroneously believe that God commands injustice by recognizing the Israeli occupation of Palestine. We challenge these evangelicals who believe in God. How come they believe in injustice against Christians and Muslims in Palestine? We believe that Donald Trump is empowering Christian religious extremism in the United States, and that has to be scored.
Whoa. If you are an evangelical Christian, according to the executive director and founder of CARE, Council of American Islamic Relations, you are an extremist. You are a religious extremist. If you believe that the Jewish people should have their own homeland in territory that is 1/650th of the largest surrounding Arab Muslim territory, if you believe that they should be allowed to go back to their own homeland, if you believe that the UN was right in recognizing Israel's right to a homeland, then you are a religious extremist. Obviously, this is on the heels of President Trump saying that, yes, we will officially recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, which it is. It is the functioning capital of Israel. It has been since 1950. And before that, going back to 1000 BC. And it was never a functioning capital of Palestine or the Muslim or Arab world before that. Fact. These are simple facts. Let's go a little further here. To say that what this gentleman is saying is that the Jewish people should not be in Palestine, period. This is what he's actually saying. They should not be there. The whole thing, in his view, is an occupation. Notice he spoke of Palestine as a whole, and it's oppressing Christians. Fact of the matter is, Christians have more liberty in Israel than they do under Hamas in Gaza Strip, or under the Palestinian Authority and the West Bank, or in any surrounding Muslim country. Christians have far more protections, far more liberties, and in the surrounding areas, if you convert from Islam to Christianity, you can be killed. In Israel, you convert from Islam to Christianity, or Christianity to Islam, and the government's not going to do anything because that's your right to do what you want to do. Let's also remember that CARE, by a court of law, was found to be working with groups like Hamas. This is as far back as 2009, 2010. Let me share a little bit more with you about CARE. Here, Nihad Awad was head of CARE. August 22nd, 2014, it was reported that he stated that Israel, not ISIS or other global terror groups, quote, is the biggest threat to world peace and security. It targets civilians, has weapons of mass destruction, and doesn't respect international laws or values. So Israel, not ISIS, not other terrorist groups, Israel is the greatest threat to world peace and security. Extraordinary. You know what's also extraordinary? A major poll just taken in Israel, and the sizable majority of Israeli Arabs were proud to live in Israel and proud to be called Israelis. Striking, isn't it? Deborah Weiss, who has been outspoken, an attorney outspoken against CARE for some years, said this. CARE, again, this is the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE appears to have three main goals. One is to silence all criticism of anything related to Islam, including Islamic terrorism. Second, it seeks to Islamize the workplace. And third, it works actively to hamper American national security. As I've looked at CARE, my concerns have only increased. So, to the leaders of CARE, I offer you a public debate. Let us have a public, civil, moderated debate on whether Israel is the real threat to world peace and security, whether evangelical Christians are religious extremists, or whether CARE supports religious extremists. You have my open invitation today. All right, 866-348-7884 is the number to call with your Jewish-related questions. Just looking at some of our YouTube conversation. Remember, if you are watching on YouTube, normally I'm not able to respond to comments or questions that are posted there, but phone number is open for all of you to call in, 866-34-TRUTH. Let's get back to Hanukkah for a moment. What you have to realize is that as Hellenism was spreading, the great appeal of the ancient Greek world, as Hellenism was spreading, there were many Jews that bought into it. Many Jews who did not want to be separated from the rest of the world. Many Jews who really were not interested in having a religion that was different than everything. They wanted to be like the nations. They wanted to fit in. And as bizarre as this seems, in the ancient world, there were Olympic type games, and the men would be competing often in the nude. And that meant that if you were circumcised, you would be standing out as a Jew around others who were uncircumcised. And as even more bizarre this sounds, there were Jewish men then who, through great pain and effort, had uncircumcision operations. In other words, skin grafted on so it would look like they had not been circumcised, so they could publicly compete and look like the rest of the world. And there were others who wanted to maintain Judaism, but in a syncretistic way, meaning that it would bring in with it other expressions and other religious insights and things like that, and thereby dilute it and compromise and pollute it. So it was only a godly remnant that was willing to fight back at the cost of losing life. That's why we celebrate Hanukkah. That's why we celebrate the Maccabees. Because in order to go against the mighty Greek Empire, against all possible odds, and when you did not have even the whole nation of Israel standing up together for you, in order to do that, it meant a lot of sacrifice, a lot of suffering. So Hanukkah is not remembered without blood. There was blood that was shed. There were people dying for their faith. This is not the first time it's happened in Jewish history, but it was a precursor, much of what would happen in subsequent centuries. We'll be right back. I want to present to you a unique way that you can partner together with me to reach Jewish people with the good news of Jesus, Yeshua, the Messiah. Hey, Paul wrote that the gospel is to the Jew first, but many of us don't know how to reach the Jewish people with the gospel. Can I tell you, we have a unique open door and Jewish people are ready to hear, but we need your help. When I was in Israel recently, my last hour in Jerusalem, about a dozen different people came up to me and they wanted to thank me for the impact of our message. One Jewish woman came up to me, a believer in Jesus. She said, "You saved my son's life. He was falling away. He was getting pulled by other objections to Jesus. He read your material. He's back in the faith." A young man came up to me. He said he and his Orthodox Jewish friends, here he is, I mean, with the yarmulke, the head covering, the traditional Jewish outfit, he said he and his Jewish friends, his Orthodox friends, watch my debates with rabbis. A few years ago, I was able to lead a Holocaust survivor to faith in Jesus. He was a brilliant man, an atheist who had fled the Holocaust. He read my books on answering Jewish objections to Jesus, came to faith, led his wife to the Lord before they left this world. Friends, we have the resources. We have books ready to be translated in Hebrew to be distributed in Israel. We have our Real Messiah website, unique for reaching Jewish people, Orthodox Jews with the gospel, ready to be translated in Hebrew, ready to do internet campaigns to get into every home in Israel. Every cell phone in Israel can have this message, but we need your help. Every gift to our ministry will literally help us reach another Jewish person with the good news of Jesus the Messiah. Go to askdrbrown.org. AskDrBrown.org, and when you go there, we will partner together to bring salvation to Israel and the Jewish people. Together, we're making a great difference.
Now is the time to reach the lost sheep of the house of Israel, to share in this end-time harvest of Jewish souls, and to find out how to receive this 2-DVD set, Predestination, Election, and the Will of God debate. Go to AskDrBrown.org and click the TV banner.
For truth, here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Thanks, friends, for joining us today on the Line of Fire on this thoroughly Jewish Thursday as we celebrate Hanukkah, Festival of Lights. The word Hanukkah means dedication, celebrating the dedication of the temple. Caleb, one of our great audio video technicians here working with us, told me that he saw a meme earlier. How do you explain Hanukkah to a non-Jew? Well, it's like having 10% showing on the battery life on your cell phone, and yet it lasts for 8 days. And we should say 8 days with full usage. For all those who are watching on YouTube or are going to see this radio broadcast later today on our Ask Dr. Brown YouTube channel, I just want to put this on the screen for you. This was from Facebook. This is when we put up our happy Hanukkah greetings a couple days ago. Darkness is fading and the true light is already shining. We blotted out the guy's name. He's subsequently been blocked from our page, but I don't want you to try to look him up or bombard him with negative stuff. But this is the very first comment that came in after we posted the happy Hanukkah greetings. We will kill all the Israelis one by one. Our dream will finish soon. Promise. Palestine free. Now, here's what I want to emphasize. You might say, okay, that's ugly, that's despicable, that's inexcusable, but it's not saying Jews, it's saying Israelis. I understand that. But let's remember, President Trump officially declares Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and says we're going to move our embassy there. What happens? There is a bombing of a synagogue in Sweden, and they're going to kill all the Jews. This is some of the rhetoric coming forward. So here's the issue. All right, here's the issue that as this is going on, it's not just America that's being attacked or President Trump that's being attacked. That's not what's happening. What's happening is that Jews are being attacked. Not just Americans, President Trump, not just Israelis, but Jews. Why? Because often anti-Zionism is just a mask for Jew hatred in general. Let me illustrate something for you. Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, has recently made some comments talking about Jews are faking history, even as the Quran says. So he's not just talking anti-Israel, he's talking anti-Jew, okay? And there is an article on Palestinian Media Watch, palwatch.com. And it's a website you want to visit regularly because it just tells you what Palestinian Authority, what Hamas, what they are actually saying and publishing and posting and promoting. So here's a statement. Again, this is on Palestinian TV, PATV, Palestinian Authority TV. Jews have no history in Palestine. Trump's decision on Jerusalem aligned with the false Zionist narrative. They claim Israeli archaeologists have searched for the last 70 years and have not found a single archaeological remnant related to the temple or to Jews and Palestine in general. They claim there is no documentation the Western Wall was ever a place of worship for Jews before the Balfour Declaration was issued in 1917. But Mahmoud Abbas's advisor, quote, the Jews have no connection to this land, not religiously or historically. Palestinian Authority minister, Israel's claims regarding the finding of Jewish antiquities are a clear falsification of the city of Jerusalem history. PLO official, Jewish historical ties to the land are a Zionist invention. Jews are in Palestine only because Europe wanted to get rid of them. Friends, this is some of the utter, absolute nonsense, lies, falsehood, lies, anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish lies, not just anti-Israel, but anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic. Remember, this goes back to the Quran. This goes back to Jewish rejection of Muhammad as the last great prophet. This has been found in Islamic history for centuries. But the lies often get more exaggerated. The more truth that is against them, more exaggerated the lies often get. 866-34-TRUTH. Let us go to David in Baltimore, Maryland. Welcome to the Line of Fire.
Hey, Dr. Brown. I just wanted to say that, I do enjoy and love what you do. But I grew up, God has given me love for Jewish people, but I'm not fully sure what exactly the love he gave me. I mean, over the years, due to my ignorance and unknowledgeable about the Bible, I approached Jewish people in an emotional way, and I don't believe it ever got anywhere. I'm addressing my doctors. All my doctors are Jewish, and some seem to be listening, some softening up a little bit, but I'm just confused, Doc. And I listen to you, and I listen to what you say, and then I'm looking at things from a realistic point of view of life, and you address. I'm just lost a little bit, Doc, and I'm really not sure what to do. This weekend, I ran into a actually Jewish person that actually believed in Yeshua, and that was amazing. But due to the situation, I wasn't able to really talk to them.
Yeah, I understand. Well, let me give you a few thoughts, David. First, I believe it's God that put that love in your heart, and the fact that you didn't have a lot of knowledge behind it indicates that it was something that the Lord dropped in you. In other words, it's not that you thought about it and then manufactured some feelings, that this was something in your heart you didn't even know where it came from or why. Let's remember that Scripture indicates to us that the vast majority of Jewish people worldwide do not believe in Jesus Yeshua, and that there's a hardening in part over the nation of Israel. And if Jews are raised in religious homes, they're raised very devoted Judaism, but in a way that completely excludes Jesus or is even very negative on Jesus if he's mentioned. That church history has often been very ugly, so that Jewish people have been driven away from Jesus through a hypocritical church in many ways. So in point of fact, it's not like every Jewish person that you just reach out to with love is immediately going to say, okay, I want to hear your message. The same with Gentiles. You witness to plenty of people, and only a certain amount get saved. But what I'd encourage you in is this, David. Number one, pray regularly for the salvation of Jewish people. There are several 100,000 Jewish believers in Jesus around the earth. So we are a sizable remnant by God's grace. So pray for the salvation of Jewish people. Pray that God would open our hearts and minds, those that don't believe, that they would come to faith. And then just keep walking in love. You never know the seeds that you plant. You never know what your kindness reaps, what you're showing love. And many Jews don't know that Christians love them. Some Jews still think that all Christians hate them. This is a great opportunity for you to say, no, we love Jewish people, care for Jewish people, and hey, I'm a Christian. And what I'd like to do, David, is send you a free copy of my book, Our Hands Are Stained with Blood. So stay right there. Our call screener is just going to come on. We're not going to put you on any mailing list or anything like that, but I want to send you a free copy of my book, Our Hands Are Stained with Blood. I think it'll deepen your heart for the Jewish people and give you further insight to who we are as well. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Dr. Brown, why is it so important that we maintain gender distinctions?
You know, it's not just a theological thing that God made us male and female. This is what makes the world go round. And every child has a mother and a father. It doesn't work without that. Once we start to say, no, gender is not what's between your legs. Gender is what's between your ears. Gender is what you perceive it to be. As someone told me, it's primitive to define gender based on biology and chromosomes. Then the sky is the limit. You can shift your gender back and forth by the minute. In point of fact, Facebook came up with 50 different ways to describe your gender, including 10 simultaneously. But that wasn't enough, so they had to add in fill in the blank. When you start to have gender-neutral bathrooms in elementary schools and gender-neutral locker rooms in public fitness places, you start to see the social and moral insanity of it. I have compassion on people who struggle, but once gender becomes the enemy, you have societal madness. So it is incumbent on us to celebrate gender distinctions, to enjoy gender distinctions. This is what makes the world go round. When you declare war on gender, you declare war on the foundations of the human race, and you cannot perpetuate society doing that.
Author, international speaker, and theologian, Dr. Michael Brown. Your voice of moral, cultural, and spiritual revolution. Get into the line of fire now by calling 866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Thank you for joining us as we are in now the second day of Hanukkah, entering the third day. Someone said, how come you're not saying Merry Christmas? Oh, when we get closer, we'll wish you a blessed Christmas season. Right now, it is Hanukkah. It is Thoroughly Jewish Thursday. I'm about to go to your Jewish-related calls. So, any Jewish-related question, give me a call, 866-348-7884. But since we come your way not just on radio, but via the internet, our broadcast goes live over various internet outlets and internet radio stations. We broadcast a live audio feed on our Facebook page. We broadcast a live video feed on our YouTube page. There is some breaking news. It is not Jewish news, but it's breaking news today. So I just want to address this. If you haven't heard, the FCC has repealed net neutrality rules. Now, right before last vote was cast, there was a bomb scare. The place was evacuated and then found out everything was okay. But reading from an article by Cecilia Kang on the New York Times, the Federal Communications Commission voted on Thursday, today, to dismantle landmark rules regulating the businesses that connect consumers to the internet, granting broadband companies the power to potentially reshape Americans' online experiences. Now, where is this going? I don't know. I am not expert in these things. I do my best to comment on things that I know the most about, have the most burden in or for, and have insights into. This is not one of them. But from what I've read, here are the concerns. Let's say that you have one internet carrier that you are using or one internet service that you are using, and someone else is broadcasting, you get their TV shows or broadcast whatever through that. They decide, well, we want to have a surcharge for that on our network. They can do that. They can now do that. You say, well, I don't know. I don't know. Again, not expert in it. I'm not sure if people think it's wise, because then everyone's going to start pricing out the other and then squeeze the thing into oblivion. But there are concerns about censorship, that if you don't have net neutrality, that if it's not just treated as a public utility, then you could potentially have censorship of ideas that are not liked. And when you have so much of the internet controlled by giants like Google/YouTube and Facebook and things like that, should that be a cause for concern? I'm sure we'll be addressing this again, but if you didn't hear the news, I just wanted to make sure you were aware of it. All right, to the phones. We'll go to Killeen, Texas. Our friend Jerikia, welcome back to the Line of Fire.
Happy Hanukkah, Dr. Brown.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you for taking my call. I have a question that's really bothered me, and it has to do with I really appreciate your help on this. When in regards to slavery in the Bible, I don't understand the concept of why God would, deliver the Israelites from slavery and then allow them to enslave Gentiles. I'm not talking about the slavery of the Jews in Exodus 21, but in Leviticus 25:44. Could you elucidate that to me? Because it really bothers me, and I don't quite understand.
Yeah, in fact, that would be the key passage that folks would find troubling. Leviticus 25, that if there is war that you're engaged in, you capture people from the nations, that you could potentially enslave them. So let's do this. On the other side of the break, I want to address the question, but that would be the most difficult single passage, because slavery within Israel for Israelites, humanitarian, was an economic thing, was more in the way of indentured servanthood than slavery as we know it with the horrors of, say, the African slave trade. But it's a very fair question. We'll address it on the other side of the break. You don't need a PhD to know that our world is in serious trouble. All it takes is one glance at your social media feed to see that we're at a critical time, not just in our nation's history, but in world history. And this generation of believers is facing an unprecedented barrage of attacks against the truth of the gospel, and they're coming from 1,000 different directions. If ever there was a time for the body to speak out, to raise a righteous standard, and to be a beacon of hope in the midst of a sea of despair, now is that time. Through preaching and teaching and radio and writing and social media, God's given us a voice. I mean, by His grace, many, many lives have been impacted for the gospel around the world. So it's for that reason I want to take you behind the scenes here at Ask Dr. Brown, let you know about some of the exciting projects we're involved in, and share with you how you can help us fulfill this great mandate from the Lord in this battle for the hearts and minds of a whole generation. Over the last several months, our studio has undergone a massive overhaul. We have put thousands of dollars into revamping what is basically our command central. This studio is not just used to produce the Line of Fire radio broadcast, but we also produce in this studio hundreds of YouTube videos that you see, as well as our media for other ministry outlets like God TV and NRB TV. So this studio is really the heartbeat of everything, all the media that we produce at Ask Dr. Brown. And now we are ready to step into a whole new realm, and we can do it with your help. So I'm asking you today to partner with us. Through your generous donations, we can fulfill this mandate from the Lord in this battle for the hearts and minds of a whole generation, and you can help amplify my voice. Friends, stand with us today. Together, we're making a difference.
It's The Line of Fire with your host, Dr. Michael Brown, your voice of moral, cultural, and spiritual revolution. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Welcome back to The Line of Fire. This is Michael Brown. Thanks for joining us during this Hanukkah season. You may not know it, but when you see the candles being lit for Hanukkah, that's technically not called a menorah. Menorah was the lampstand in the temple with 7 branches, right? But Hanukkah has 9 branches. So one normally in the middle, it's called the shamash. That's the servant, the helper candle, and you light that first, and then light the other 8 candles, remembering how the little amount of oil lasted for 8 days, miraculously, supernaturally, when it should have barely lasted for 1. This is as the temple was being rededicated, but that was just one small sign of God's gracious favor. Remember that the Greeks had the gall to sacrifice a pig on the temple altar in Jerusalem, and to forbid various Jewish practices. This is what prompted the Jewish revolt and then the raising up of the Jewish Commonwealth, so that you had independent Jewish rule for a period of time before then Romans become the next ruling power over the Jewish people. All right, so as to Jerry Kia's comment, questioning about slavery under the law, let's first say this. I found it very interesting in my most recent reading through Exodus that Exodus 20, you have the 10 Commandments and then some basic laws after that. And then the very first laws that start in Exodus 21, they have to do with slavery, Israelite slaves. And what struck me was this was because God wanted the Israelites to get it right here, because they had just come out of slavery. In other words, it wasn't a bad thing, but a good thing. Say, okay, this is still part of the culture. This is still part of the way that things are done. And because of that, here are guidelines to make sure you do it well, that you do it better than the world around you and the world out of which you came. So the laws are put right up front to say, get this right. Of course, you're going to have it. It's an economic thing within the country and within the world, and It's a way that poor can serve, etc., or pay off debts or whatever. But you're going to do it right. But what do you do with verses like Leviticus 25, beginning in verse 44? As for your male and maid slaves who will be with you, you may buy male and female slaves from among the nations. You may also buy from resident aliens who live among you and their families who are with you, whom they fathered in your land. They may become your property. You may give them as inherited property to your children after you, to own as properties in perpetuity. You may make bond slaves of them, but no one is to rule over his fellow Israeli with harshness. So I mentioned before the break, in times of war, things like that, but this is not even in times of war. It's just saying under the law, this could be done. My answer to that, sir, to be as honest and candid as I can, is that as Jesus told us in Matthew 19, that God gave Moses laws about divorce because of the hardness of human hearts. I believe this was part of God's judgment on idol-worshiping nations, but in itself, it's something that is not ultimately God's ideal or what is right, which is why the law ultimately gives place to the gospel. It paves the way for the gospel and gives place to it. I could only understand it ethically as God's judgment on sinning foreign nations and part of Israel's dominance as the chief nation. But on the larger ethical level, it certainly falls short of God's ideal in terms of not bringing judgment, but bringing liberty, bringing freedom, and bringing restoration. So if someone criticized it, I would say, yes, from our vantage point, it seems wrong and unacceptable, but this was not forever. This was part of the Sinai covenant, part of Israel's dominance over the nations, and this ultimately gives place now to the teachings of Jesus in the New Testament, where such things are not taught and not reinforced. I'd be as honest and candid as I could. I've looked at it over the years. I don't feel that there's like something in there that if we could just see it, we'd understand it better. To me, it's part of Israel's dominance in the ancient world, God's judgment on the nations, and this would be right in that context. But God's ideal is for the gospel to come equally all people. That would be my honest answer, sir.
And just real quick, like, would that apply to like a Gentile who converts to Judaism?
Well, in the ancient world, yeah. If a Gentile became part of the people of Israel, then generations go down. He and his descendants are just like the people of Israel. So, could they own slaves like that? Yes. What would happen with Gentile slave that converted the faith of Israel? The text doesn't tell us, except you could intuit from it that since you couldn't treat fellow Israelites harshly or keep them in perpetuity like this, that perhaps it could lead to their freedom under the law eventually. Hey, but thank you for asking the question. That's my very honest answer. All right, let's go over to Texarkana, Texas. Hunter, welcome to the Line of Fire.
Hello, Dr. Brown. Chag Sameach Chanukah.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm Jewish myself, but I believe that Yeshua is our Messiah, the Savior of the world, the King of the universe. And one of the things that was on your call screen is that I'm having a very difficult time with other believers who may not necessarily, whether they're Messianic Jewish, whether they're Baptist, whatever. When you talk to them about the things that we're talking about today, it's almost like an immediate wall goes up, and you ever seen a kid with their fingers in their ear, saying, I don't want to hear what you're saying. But it grieves me because I try not to interject my own, commentary. I go to the scriptures and I said, okay, well, let's look at what the Apostle Paul says in Romans chapter 2. I mean, if anybody was a Jew, Paul was. I mean, he was a Pharisee. I said, but even here he states who is and who isn't a Jew, and I'm trying to make them understand, when we talk about the transformation of, the renewing of our minds by renewing our hearts, by trusting in Yeshua and believing that he saved us for our sins, you are a new creature. I said, he says it right here, who truly is a Jew.
Yeah, but hang on. Let me just go a little further with that. If you read all of Romans, every time before that and every time after that, he says Jew, he means someone who is a descendant of the Jewish people, a physical descendant. And if he's making a point there that the real Jew is one who's one internally. Probably the better argument is between two Jews, who's the real Jew? One who's only circumcised outwardly or one who's also circumcised inwardly. But nowhere in the rest of the New Testament does he call Gentiles Jews. So, right. Oh, okay. Just want to be clear. So what I'd suggest is this, Hunter, that you can only do what you do in terms of opening up the scriptures, right? But if people can start to recognize, okay, Jesus himself is Jewish. Know that, right? Okay. His name was Yeshua. You know what his mother's name was? No, Miriam. Yeah. And you know what Christ means? Well, what does it mean? Messiah. So he's Yeshua the Messiah, son of Miriam. And you know that James is really Jacob. So let's read the letter of Jacob. Or some of the disciples, their names were like Yaakov, which is Jacob, or Yochanan, Shimon. And say, you know, in the New Testament, never heard of Easter, practice Passover. Paul wrote to the Corinthians in 1 Corinthians 5 about Passover. You say, well, King James in Acts 12 mentions Easter. It's just a mistranslation. It shouldn't be there. It should just say Passover. So I think many people feel some type of connection to Israel and the Jewish people as Christians. They may not know why. Some wrongly think that the church is the new Israel. But if you can get them to understand, hey, Jesus Yeshua is called Rabbi, not Reverend, and he didn't come to start a new religion called Christianity, but to fulfill what was written to Moses and the prophets. People, it starts to open up, and you say, hey, we're not trying to get Gentiles to become Jews. That's not the goal. Or say that the Gentiles have to keep the law of Moses, but rather realize you're grafted into a tree that historically is a Jewish Israelite tree. Do you have my book, The Real Kosher Jesus?
I do not, Dr. Brown.
All right, tell you what, since we're getting close to the holidays, I'm going to send that to you as a gift, sir. So, Ken, The Real Kosher Jesus, I want to send that as a gift to Hunter. Hunter, stay right there. As soon as Kim, our call screener, has a moment, he's going to go and get your home address or business address, whatever. I want to send you that. Not only will it give you more insight and information, but it's a great tool to give to a Christian to help that person understand the Jewishness of Jesus. It's my #1 book, just to give to a Jewish person, help them understand Jesus is the Messiah. My #1 book to give to a Christian, show them the Jewish roots of their faith. All right, some more calls. In fact, we're going to go to Germany next. Take your calls from Germany and beyond when we come back.
Kavod. Kavod, glory, abundance, honor.
All right, I've got to be candid with you. Many times when pastors and teachers and folks on TV quote the Hebrew, they don't get it right. I got to be honest with you. Sometimes they mispronounce it. Sometimes they don't explain it properly. But one word that they often get right and pronounce right is the Hebrew word kavod, which means glory. And if you've heard that it comes from a root having to do with heaviness and weight, you're absolutely right. It can refer to if someone's got lots of possessions, like Abraham, speaking of his kavod, all of his possessions, the riches that he has, it can refer to that. The same root can be used, say, to speak of something that's heavy. Israel is an am keved avon, a people weighed down with iniquity. That's the word keved. It can speak of the liver. Kaved, the liver, which literally means heavy. Why? Because it was considered to be the heaviest organ in the body, so it was literally called heavy. So what is God's kavod? Yes, it is His glory. Yes, it is His splendor. But in a very unique way, it speaks of the manifestation of His presence. It is the visible manifestation of the power and the presence of God. And that's why you'll read, say, Exodus 40, the building of the tabernacle. God's kavod fills the tabernacle, and as a result, Moses can't enter and minister. I mean, that presence was so thick, he couldn't enter and minister. And in the same way, we have it in 2 Chronicles, the 5th chapter, with the dedication of Solomon's temple, that the kavod, it fills the temple the same way the priests can't enter. So even though the kavod is not always seen and it is not always physically felt and manifest, it is just as weighty and heavy. And the amazing thing is that the Messiah in us, Paul tells us, that is the glory of God revealed within us.
The Line of Fire now by calling 866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Thanks, friends, for joining us on Thoroughly Jewish Thursday. Hey, just a reminder, first of the new year, we're going to be using a new clock. Those that begin listening at the top of the hour, so 3 o'clock Eastern Standard, 2 o'clock Central Standard, etc. We're going to be starting 3 minutes into the hour after Salem Radio News, or SRN News. We're going to be starting right after that, and then we're going to have more radio time and less breaks. Same thing if you start listening at 3:30 Eastern Standard or 2:30 Central Standard, etc. 2:30, there'll be a 3-minute, either news or whatever the local stations are airing. And then 3 minutes in, we start with more radio time and less breaks. Also, if you're watching on YouTube now, or if you are listening to the live audio feed on Facebook, it's through the generosity of many of you who've stood with us and helped us. I want to thank you as we're coming to the end of the year. Thank you for your support. It's not enriching any of us, it's enriching you. As you give to us, we can enrich you with more resources in higher quality ways. If you haven't joined us yet, can I refer you to our GoFundMe page? Go there, gofundme.com/Ask Dr. Brown Studio. That's ASKDR Brown Studio. All right? GoFundMe.com/Ask Dr. Brown, ASKDR Brown Studio. As you go there, watch the video, and as you share with us, your gifts make a great difference. And was a whole lot more we're about to step into with your help, with your generosity. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Our goal is to minister to you and serve you and make an impact. You're helping us. When you amplify my voice, you're amplifying our voice together. All right, let's go over to Germany. Nikita, welcome to the Line of Fire. Thanks for calling.
Hey, Dr. Brown, how are you
Doing well, thank you.
Very good. Now in Germany, I have a Muslim friend,
Yeah.
and he's from Lebanon, and another friend cannot understand why for Trump's decision on Jerusalem. They always ask, where does Trump get this right from to declare Jerusalem the capital of Israel? And he just wants to cause war for a profit of the United States. And if Jerusalem gets declared capital of Israel, then the Palestinians won't be allowed to enter Jerusalem, or at least if.
Yeah. So let me address this. Okay. Number one, Jerusalem has always been Israel's capital. Through history, Jerusalem was the capital of United Israel, beginning under King David, 1000 BC. It has always been the recognized capital of the nation. So in exile, Jews pray every year, return to Jerusalem. And since 1950, so immediately after the birth of Israel, Jerusalem was declared the capital, and it is the functioning capital. That's where the parliament is. That's where the Supreme Court is. It is the functioning capital of Israel. So number one, every nation on earth gets to pick its capital, and the rest of the world addresses it, recognizes it. So this is Israel's capital. Why doesn't the rest of the world recognize it? That's the first thing. The second thing is that in negotiations about Israel, it's always been recognized that Jerusalem was Israel's. In other words, for many, many years, Jews have said a united, undivided Jerusalem will be our capital. Jerusalem has never been the capital of a Palestinian state. There has never been a Palestinian state. Jerusalem has never been central to the Muslim faith. Yes, it's a holy city, and it's got some important shrines there, Al-Aqsa Mosque and Dome of the Rock. But if you live in Jerusalem and near those holy places, you pray with your back towards those facing Mecca. where Jews around the world prayed towards Jerusalem. And when East Jerusalem was under Arab Muslim control in the war that ensued in 1948, the Jewish holy sites were defiled, cemeteries were destroyed, and Jews were not allowed to access the place at all. When we regained the territory in 1967, it has since been open to everyone. Muslims have safe protection, can go to the Dome of the Rock, and nobody can hurt them because they're under Israeli protection. Nothing has changed. Israel has made 100% clear that the status quo remains the same. So these are just lies that are being circulated. Christians and Muslims have freedom to practice their faith in Jerusalem because Jews control it. If it was controlled by Muslims, that wouldn't be the case. So this is just propaganda. The only way to have peace is to recognize reality. Jerusalem is Israel's capital. It has never been the capital of an Islamic or Muslim or Arab state ever. And there's no reason for it to be there now except to try to divide against the Jewish people. So simple answers. The question is, will they take truth? Will your friend take truth? But hey, thanks for listening from Germany and calling from there. I appreciate it. God bless you.
Thank you.
Yep. Hey, let me just do this real quick. I know time is short. There's a Facebook question asking, does Talmud or Mishnah address spiritual warfare or gifts of the Spirit? Well, something like gifts of the Spirit believes that prophecy there'll be an infusion of prophecy at the the Messianic era. There's some text that would point in that direction, and it does believe in the demonic realm, but spiritual warfare, the way taught in the New Testament, no, that wouldn't be a concept that's found in Talmud or Mishnah. Okay, real quick, there was an article posted in Charisma News by Michael Snyder, how the number 7 biblically links Trump and Israel. And it's interesting. It's interesting. I don't know what to make of it, but it's interesting. Let me just read a few parts from it, down about 5 paragraphs. The year 2017 is exactly 70 years from 1947, and many are drawing parallels between that period of time, 7-year Babylonian exile that we read about in the Bible. All right, skip down a little bit. Donald Trump won the presidential election on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's 7th year, 7th month, and 7th day in office. I haven't verified this. I'm just sharing it. On Trump's first full day in office, he was 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days old, and it happened in year 5777 on the Hebrew calendar. Donald Trump was born exactly 700 days before Israel declared independence on May 14th, 1948. I wonder who finds this stuff. 777 days after Trump's birth, Israel was exactly 77 days old. Israel's 70th anniversary will come exactly 700 days after Donald Trump's 70th birthday. All these remarkable numbers simply be the result of random choice. Michael Snyder says maybe, but I don't think so. Here's my official position. I don't know. It's interesting, though. It's interesting, and I haven't verified this, okay? But I just saw it the other day and thought I'd mention it since we're talking about Jerusalem. Does that tie in with any decisions that we make? No. Oh, we see all the 7s, and therefore we make decisions based on that. No, of course not. Of course not. It's interesting. It's interesting. Now, maybe if you look for patterns of 6s, you'll find them. I don't know. Again, I'm not lending credibility to. I'm just sharing interesting information. Hey, friends, pray for me. We are in the midst of major preparation for Jewish outreach videos we're going to start recording next week. Pray for anointing, for clarity, for wisdom, for the salvation of many Jewish people. Have a happy, blessed Chanukah.